Today we're going to get to the bottom of intonation, what it is, how you measure it, how you check it, and why I think a lot of people pretty much way overthink the thing, because guess what? Your ears are not as good as your tuner. Before we get going, let's do me a favor really quick and hit the subscribe button and the like button and hit the little bell next to it. That way you know when we get new videos about guitar stuff, because that's what we do here on Dylan Talks Tone. And I also want to thank my Patreon supporters as well as my YouTube member supporters down there. You can click those links and join to that stuff. You can use super thanks, all that kind of stuff. And you can go to DylanTalksTone.com and you can buy pickups. That's how you really can support what we do here. Okay, so intonation. It's kind of like this voodoo thing. It's like this black magic. Everybody fights with it so much. Well, guess what? It's not that hard. Usually intonation in voices, there's two principles, rising and falling. So rising and falling. Like, it's just the rise and fall of pitch, really is all it is. On a guitar, we're trying to get a consistent pitch so that the note is completely in tune. And on a guitar, first of all, you have to have your open note perfectly in tune. That's number one. And the way we get there, first of all, is we do the entire rest of the setup on the guitar first. If you ever touch your intonation screws on your guitar before you have completed a run through of the entire setup on the guitar, then you're doing it wrong. This should be the very last measurement that you do on your guitar. If you're jumping ahead in these steps, it will never be right, because all of the this measurement of intonation is dependent on all of the other things. Why is that? Because it has to do with the length of the string. Intonation is on a guitar, for guitar purposes, is you have a 25.5-inch scale on this guitar, or you have a 25, or you have a 24 3/4, or whatever. All we're really doing is we're trying to determine that at the very tippy top of the 12th fret, you have an equal length of string on this side of it and on this side of it. That the 12th fret is exactly in the middle of your scale length on your high E guitar. The high E of your guitar. And then either all the rest of the strings are just a little bit compensated for the effective length of their strings, because as the diameter changes, it has to be adjusted a little bit, right? Like if the string is fatter, then the center of the diameter of that string is just in a little bit different spot. The other thing that can affect this as well is the height of the string off of the fretboard. This is why I personally don't set my intonation this way. I fret the note. Here's why. Because you don't play like this. And every time we press down on the frets somewhere on the guitar, we're actually pulling the guitar away from ideal pitch, right? We're pulling down on the string, we're stretching it, we're changing the tension of it. Here or here or here or here, right? So we're always pulling it away from perfect pitch. So I like to set my intonation that way too, because that's realistically to how we play. Right? Theoretically, when I do this, the difference between there is a difference between the length of this string and on the other side of my finger because of how I'm pulling down on it. As you can imagine, if the action is higher, you're pulling down further, which means you're having more of an effect on your intonation. So I personally check it with my finger on the 12th fret. Effective length of the string, making sure that it's proper on both sides of the 12th fret. So the reason we do it last is because there's a bunch of things that affect string length. First of all, we need to set the tension of the guitar by whatever gauge of strings we're going to use. That is going to determine our neck relief. If our neck relief is bent this way or bent this way, that's affecting the length of the string. Once we get our neck relief set, once we get our string height set, then we can adjust our intonation, because when we set our string height, The further we pull it down, like we just talked about, when we set our tension of our strings, that affects the neck relief of the guitar, how straight the neck is. So we always want to do this last. How do we set it? Basically, we tune it perfectly to pitch after everything is done. We fret the 12th fret, and we look at our tuner. If the needle, as we're a right-handed guitar, goes this way, then the saddle goes this way. If we fret it and the needle goes this way, as we're looking at the tuner, then we turn the saddle that way. Just a little bit. Now, what if you say, I completely ran out of screw and it was not intonated properly? Well, then that means you have a problem in your guitar somewhere. That means your string height is too high and you're pulling it completely away from pitch. That means you have a bad nut. That means you have something else is wrong in the guitar. Remember that we're only compensating slightly for the width of the difference in the diameter of strings. So if you have to go more than a few thousandths, back from your high E string, chances are there's some other problem in the guitar and you've run out of room for some other issue. Every guitar leaves the factory, if it is, especially if it's a commercially built guitar, with enough room to do all of this. If the guitar was constructed properly in the first place and somebody else owns this guitar and their guitar is intonated, there's nothing wrong with your guitar. Something's wrong with your process and you need to start over. Okay? It wouldn't make sense that I have a Telecaster that I can intonate and you have one that you cannot. The instrument is the same guitar. We know that it's possible because my guitar right here is perfectly intonated. I'm going to show you in a minute. And you're going to be like, oh, that's totally impossible with 3 saddles. Guess what? It is because you're deaf. So we're going to talk about that. Okay, so we're going to check intonation on this here Telecaster, and I'm going to show you that it is near as makes no difference perfect. Actually, it's pretty perfect. And why you don't need to worry about it if it's not. So let's look at this. So let's go ahead and check, make sure our E is perfectly on the pitch. Okay, that's pretty dang close. It's not even registering any cents off of pitch. We'll check our 12th fret. Perfect. B. Little tiny bit of motion there. But it's not registering. The tuner would tell me if it was off a bunch of cents. So G. Okay, so this guitar is perfectly intonated. So you're gonna say, well, I thought that was impossible with a vintage style Telecaster. Well, guess what? It's not. We just proved that it is not impossible. What else? We've got these vintage style Gibson guitars that are, people say that you need a better bridge to intonate them better. There is no better or worse. Basically, it's good or it's not. You looked at the tuner and you're like, well, yeah, but I saw the tuner move a little bit. You did. This tuner is accurate to 1/10 of 1 cent. What is a cent? A cent is a measurement of pitch in relation to another pitch. So let's put that into practical application with the guitar. 1 fret is 1 semitone. 1 fret is 100 cents. Okay, so when your tuner says it tunes down to 0.1 of a cent, that is 1/10 of 100th of a fret. 1/10 of 100th of a fret. That's all well and good. I was reading basically just about that or pretty close. What can we actually hear as human beings? There's been a lot of studies on this, and they've basically said that any average musician can not hear the difference between 12 cents. So, if you were to play this note and then tune it down 12 cents, you would barely be able to have a perceptible difference. That is true, except that we like to think that we're better than that because we're guitar players. So they've done other studies with this when you put them with other notes. So you could say this, you could tell, and you tune it down 12 cents. You could probably hear that, right? When you put it with other notes is where you really tell the difference. So if you go, and we tune, that's actually pretty good still. See, now you start to hear it flat, right? And some people have better hearing than others. When you put a note with another note in a chord, we can hear about 3 cents as human beings, okay? So that means that if we get our guitar within 1 cent, chances are even the best of us cannot hear the difference. Well, that tuner that is under $200, and there are clip-on tuners that go 0.02 of a cent, which is better than this one. For 35 bucks, I'll put a link to it in the description, you can go buy it. The tuner is better than your human ear. So if you can get this thing within 1 cent, which is not perfect, according to our tuner, your human ear cannot hear that. So this Telecaster can be intonated to a proper playing pitch, no matter what. The only caveat to that would be is if you did something unconventional, like ran really, really heavy strings, or you played crazy tunings where the intonation of those notes needed to be adjusted. Or if you were playing with other instruments, such as a piano or a harp, that intonate differently than the guitar, then you would need to basically have a little more critical ear, because not because your ear is better, but because those instruments work differently than a guitar. All we're getting to it with this is that you can tune your Telecaster. You can tune your vintage wraparound Les Paul Jr. You can tune anything, 3 saddles, to within an inch of its life, and it will be fine, and you will not be able to tell the difference when you play it live. There is no reason to ditch vintage style bridges. There's no reason to change out parts on your guitar, because these guitars can be intonated. We just demonstrated it. And if I can do it, you can do it. This is a simple adjustment. And like we said, if there's something way off about it, there's something wrong with your guitar. You know, you got a worn out nut, or you got something else affecting the length of the string in some other way. But these guitars are, once they're mass produced like this, they'd all be wrong, or they'd all be right. Your guitar is no different. You can do it. What does Matt at Texas Toast say? I'm a human, I can do it, you're a human, you can do it too, or something like that. I got the quote mixed up. But it can be done. This is not rocket science. This is not some kind of voodoo. This was not a how to intonate your guitar video. This was understanding why it can be done, how it works, and why you, as an imperfect human being, cannot hear the difference. Your tuner's better than you. Remember that. If you can't get it 100% perfect, that doesn't mean it's not perfect. Your tuner is better than you. My tuner is better than me, and this is a really good tuner. I'll leave a link to a couple of different tuners that you can use to do setups in an acceptable fashion on your guitar, and you'll get good results. And this stuff will be in tune. And if you're in the comments saying that you have super duper ears that are superhuman, that can hear things that other people can't hear, biology says that you are lying. That's not me. That's science. Thanks for hanging out. Make sure you do me a favor, hit the subscribe button and the like button, Patreon, join bell, super thanks, all those kinds of stuff. And yeah, I'll see you in the next video, probably podcast tomorrow.